According to Forbes, 50 million people now consider themselves a creator, playing a fundamental role in the rapidly growing $100 billion creator economy. This includes those who have been offered $1 billion for their YouTube channel and associated businesses. So what is it about the creator economy that is so enticing for so many people and businesses? And why are young people desperate to move away from the work culture of their parents?
It's the only way that you can really reach a large audience.
This is Justin Van Zon. He's a fellow creator and entrepreneur that I met while traveling in Amsterdam.
Well done. You're too kind.
This is just a random sighting that is going on.
He's worked as a marketing manager and helped create a strong international foothold for numerous startups. He speaks 6 languages, including teaching English in Nepal and Thailand, and university economics in the Netherlands. Was a goalie on the Dutch national lacrosse team, and most importantly, is the epitome of putting yourself out there and building connections with anyone from anywhere. He's now working on launching a tea brand purely built through social media, in particular by building a community on TikTok. So I asked him, why has he decided to double down on using social media as the marketing mechanism for a startup, and what he thinks are necessary skills to possess in venturing this field.
The fastest way to get somewhere is to go slow. You alone are responsible for the way that people remember you. You're just not gonna cut it. I realized what I just said. There's so many different ways of monetizing from that audience, but first of all, Mama, I'm on YouTube. I made it, Mama. I made it.
Right, there we go. But I'm the king of making shitty stuff look good. Rightio, so what's this business that you've gotten started?
The business I'm trying to start is Special Teas, and it's a tea brand founded in and around social media. So a lot of the strategy for the business revolves around community building on social media, community building on finding people online through TikTok and Instagram, and getting them to engage in the content, getting to engage in the product, and then eventually saying, hey, you like this content, we also have this tea on the side.
So why do you see social media as the key to starting new businesses in today's age?
I think that's the way to go nowadays. It's the only way that you can really reach a large audience at relative ease without relative high cost.
As opposed to getting a TV ad for a couple $1 million and hoping people like it?
Right, because if you have a TV ad, people are like, okay, that's a cool ad. Has it ever incentivized you to buy something?
Maybe, I mean, like, that's cool, but I never actually go out and get it because there's such a high barrier between seeing something on your TV than actually doing it. And it might build positive association, like, I don't know, maybe there's a tennis brand that you like now, so you get those rackets. Or there's a car, so when I do buy a car in 25 years' time because of the supply shortages, so it seems a very inefficient way of targeting people. As opposed to being on Facebook, I want someone who's between the ages of 25 to 35 who constantly looks at car posts.
And then if you're selling like a small item for $10, $20, then you can immediately redirect them to a link that they click, and within 5 clicks they've made a purchase. Rather than you watch them on TV, it takes them a while to get to a car shop, and then they still need to remember you as that brand that they want to buy from.
It breaks down where the PR can also be advertising at the same time. So if they don't want to buy it, great, you've built positive PR. And if they do want to buy it, well, there's not as many barriers as there used to be. You can go straight to purchase.
First of all, just love for tea that got me started into this, and the love for business. And I think because in the past year I've done my studies, I've graduated, and then graduation they kind of say, well, good luck.
That is true.
And then you've paid what in the Netherlands it's 6k for 3 years. In Australia it's much more.
Well, to be fair, my degree doubled because of the previous government.
Oh Lord.
Thanks, guys.
So it's a lot better than the US or Australia. 6k compared to 50k student debt.
Mine's 45 AUD total for 3 years.
Right. But at the end of that, they say, okay, you've now learned everything that you need. You have a degree. Good luck. And then you have to decide what you want to do now. So what I decided to do is I got a job here in Amsterdam. I didn't enjoy that job just because of the line of work, and it didn't incentivize me. It didn't make me feel fulfilled. So I quickly left that job. And then I found myself on a path to decide what I want to do with life. I decided to go about social media. So I decided to build a social media brand. That was fun after a while. After making a lot of mistakes, I decided that didn't work because I just didn't get any traction. But what I did get is a lot of skills of content creation. I got a lot of friends that I made through social media, through Instagram. I paid for a lot of mentors, some of them good, some of them bad, but they've all taught me something to get to a further point, to a point where I can say, okay, I understand the basics of business. Now let me try this for myself with an actual product.
So basically
That's
what
where
you're
we
saying is
start.
even if you fail at your business, you haven't really failed because it's still built skills that make you valuable for the next thing that you pursue.
Right. Usually the biggest advice that people give to 23, 22-year-olds is you just need to start something, just try it out. And the other thing that they say is either get a mentor, but also invest in yourself, right? And invest in books that you can read, invest in knowledge. And the way I invested, it was a bit more expensive, but I invested in mentors. I got a personal branding mentor. I got a social media strategist mentor. And they've taught me so much more in that 6 months that I spent with them than I could ever learn alone. So I got a degree's worth for more experience and less money.
So how did you go about finding mentors?
I found them through Instagram. You find them through the content that they create. You're looking for a type of content, right? Now I know you create content for the creator economy. Help people build better brands, help people build their own monetization on YouTube, on TikTok, right? And I think through what you're posting there, you show your expertise. And that's how you attract people that are looking for that kind of expertise. I was looking for personal branding. I saw a person that really knew her stuff. I was like, okay, this sounds like a person knowledgeable enough to help me get to where she is.
So you just reach out and say, I've got a question. Would you be able to answer it?
Yes. The way I did it was, hey, my name's Justin, and I think you can help me with this and this and this, and I would love to work with you. And at that point, people are like, okay, he's invested in me enough. He knows my stuff. He knows what I'm about. Because they also know, now they've set themselves as an authority, which is when they can sell their stuff.
Yep.
And they can get you because you believe in what they can do and their abilities.
And people love feeling like they're helping someone out. Like they love feeling like they're of value in a way or another. And as long as you're not overly doing it and being annoying, people love helping you out.
Right.
Even if it feels like there's a sort of a gap there where you're like, oh, I'm not good enough for that. People love offering their advice, especially if they kind of see a bit of themselves in you. It's like you're a younger version of them, or a version that they wish that they could be at that age.
Yeah.
They're 100% willing to jump on and be like, yeah, I'm happy to call back or answer your questions.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the beauty of social media and of Instagram and of TikTok, where you can literally DM a creator right now and they can respond.
Which
They can
have
respond
done multiple
directly to your
times.
question, right? And that's an opportunity that so many people haven't had before. Something that's only recently popped up. Please excuse us for technical difficulties. The two people I contacted were Sima Batavia. She's a personal branding coach for introverts. And she really spoke to her audience. She really spoke to the fears. Okay, you have to now set yourself out. You want to set yourself up, but you're an introvert, so what do? You're scared of people.
Because you need someone who's like yourself, who's been down that path to help guide you.
Right. And even if let's say you're a starting content creator, and you're maybe out of the abilities that you have on a scale of 1 to 10, you're maybe a 5, maybe a 4. You can still help someone that's a 1, that's a 2. Take your expertise as a videographer. I can learn so much from you, just how to position a shot, how to set up a camera properly, how to get the audio working.
Even though I'm not Steven Spielberg or Martin Scorsese.
Right, but then you get me to the level that you are, and then eventually...
And hopefully I've leveled up a bit, and then we can keep bouncing off each other, and then I learn a bit off your maybe SEO skills or you during your building your business and that journey.
Exactly.
So it's a constant pushing each other up.
So that's kind of been my journey of trying to discover what I enjoyed in life. And I found marketing to be a great joy of mine. Creating content for people, creating content that people would enjoy, watch, and would learn from. I'm also a teacher at heart, so that helps.
So you did some English teaching in Thailand, was it?
I did English teaching in Nepal, in Thailand, and I taught economics at university.
Wow. Didn't you just graduate? Oh, you graduated Masters. So you
It was more of a teaching assistant kind of job.
Okay, yeah.
But it was still like me teaching the exam content just before the exam. And I had so much fun doing it.
So what value do you think you have derived from traveling to so many countries and doing these off-the-books teaching and learning 6 languages? And what indirect value do you think that brings in terms of engaging with the world, creating content and bridging communities?
Oh, Lord. I
So
think
was
the
it
biggest
Hindi,
thing...
Thai, English, Dutch, French, something else?
I can communicate in German. My Hindi is not good anymore. I used to learn at university. But
So European. Oh my god.
I realized what I just said. Oh, my Hindi isn't that good. I only learned at university.
For me, it's like, wow, I can speak one other language somewhat well, and I kind of failed Spanish, but I want to get better at it. And like, that's impressive to an Australian.
Absolutely.
For a European, it's like, pathetic. I speak to anyone here, and they're like, yeah, my English isn't good, but your English is better than mine. It's such a different standard of competence.
It makes me very anxious, because here, in Australia, it will be such a feat, and here it's like,
It's an
that makes
expectation.
sense. Everybody does that. Right?
You're bad if you don't.
I think the biggest joy of speaking so many languages and having done so much with different cultures is that you can communicate with everybody. Let me give you an example. I was in Portugal the other day. I don't speak a word of Spanish. There was a Spanish girl and her boyfriend, and we had these long-winded conversation eventually about philosophy. She didn't speak English, I didn't speak Spanish. But because you understand how they work, how they more or less think, you have a starting point to build that relationship with. And that then helps me, hopefully, to build a community online as well. Because I can then speak to so many different people in their own way, in the way that they like to be spoken to.
You can really understand from their mentality how they think, how they operate. And you are that bridge there to say, here's what I'm talking about, and I actually understand how to get you there in the end.
Right.
Rather than only living in your small community where maybe that's all you have to go off. You don't have the broad range of experiences that you wouldn't have gotten if you weren't able to communicate with those people.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't say I'm an expert. Let's say that's a person from India. I can speak a bit of Hindi, and that doesn't make me an expert at all. That doesn't make me understand their culture.
A lot of time it's just one word and they're like, wow, that's fantastic.
Right? And that's what my mentor actually told me. One of my biggest strengths is disarming people. Is that you can just make that spark happen in someone, and they're suddenly interested in you and what you have to say, and you as a person, and that you are interested in them. And that is a foundation for a friendship, but also for, in the future, in 10 years' time, for a network of people.
So what's your biggest keys then to be able to break that barrier down when you first talk to someone to really all of a sudden make it a friendly conversation rather than a stranger on stranger? So delve straight past the small talk.
I think the start is the realization that you and you alone are responsible for the way that people remember you and whether they remember you, right? So if I would have a fun conversation with you and I'd make you laugh and stuff, that'll make you remember me in a certain way.
The emotional connection.
If I'd be very quiet and timid and held back, you might not remember me at all. So that's the starting point. And then by always remembering and saying their name, you start the conversation with their name. Hey, Parker, it's pleased to meet you.
Names are huge.
You slip it into the conversation because that's the word that they love to hear most. And then you always end the conversation with it. Hey Parker, it was amazing hanging out. We'd love to see you again.
It's probably like one of those things is your name you're so used to when it's called you respond. So when someone speaks to you with it, all of a sudden it makes you tick up and pay attention to exactly what's being said rather than just brushing it off of, oh, it's just one of these small talk remarks because you've been so trained to your name. Oh, that's the same thing in a conversation. Your brain goes, focus.
Exactly. So that's the first point, and there's two other ones that I use. I ask questions to new people all the time, constantly. I ask them about anything that might have heard that day, anything that might have happened to me. I tell a bit of a story, and then I'm like, hey, has that ever happened to you? What do you think of that? Like, how is your job? How is your studies going?
And I think one thing that I heard recently, which I think is one of the best ways to approach it, is rather than asking, what's happening in your life, say, what was one cool thing that happened today? Because it adds boundaries that they can respond to and means They can actually give a good answer. And it's coming back again. Oh no. He's already been here. Why does he need to come here again?
You were talking about boundaries, about adding boundaries to a conversation.
So for one, that allows people to more easily answer a question rather than like, how are you? Yeah, right. That doesn't add any depth. And then also helping actually knowing something about someone. Like if I came here today and said to Justin, oh, well, what are your thoughts on this? Like it can be a bit shallow, but the fact that I looked at his LinkedIn, see what language does he learn, what's his sort of work history, it means you can ask better questions, deeper questions, maybe stuff that they haven't been asked before, or maybe stuff that they want to be asked. And then you can lead on with that because it all of a sudden establishes something deeper than just a brush off answer of, yeah, I'm all right, what sports do you play? Basketball, and that's it. All of a sudden you can delve into something that you may be more passionate about, more experiences in. Because even if you have no interest in something, if someone is passionate about it and they speak about it, they can make anything interesting whatsoever. And it's the same with this content creation stuff. You need to be able to speak about it so passionately that someone who didn't think they cared about whatever you were doing all of a sudden cares. I don't care about wine, but Gary Vee makes his wine tasting sound interesting. I don't care about garage sailing, but once again, I'll watch it. I don't care about coffee. I've never drank coffee, but I'll watch Peter McKinnon's coffee montages because they just are able to present it in such a way that whoever you are, you're entertained.
Right. And I think that's what, in terms of my skill set, me being a teacher helps so much because I understand, okay, this is how I need to present a certain subject in a way that makes people suddenly fall in love with it. My students hated economics.
Economics is
fun.
Hated
it.
It's so good.
And then suddenly, after I was explaining to them for like, I gave class, right? So after like 3 hours of me just talking about, okay, this is why it's interesting. You could see a light suddenly in their eyes of like, holy shit, this is beautiful. I now see why certain things are happening in the world. And
I think that's the important thing, make it practical, right? Is how does it actually affect your life? Like mathematics was the most boring thing to do in high school, but as soon as you went to physics, you started seeing where it was applied. It was still boring, it was still stressful, but it became more practical and somewhat more interesting because like now it actually makes sense why we're doing it. It's not pointless. You use derivatives because it comes out with this different formula that allows you to predict something else, not just for the sake of it. And it completely changed the dynamic. Like in my economics class, what I think made it most interesting is the teacher would always apply it to what is happening in the real world. How is it actually relevant? How did it apply to the GFC? How was it being applied to COVID? So obviously every week was relevant. And then on top of that, he would have economic memes. So it wouldn't be just purely reading off a whiteboard. He would have engaging things going on, little jokes, little nuances that would happen. And it became more of a community rather than just being lectured to. And that's the same thing with content creation, is focusing on that community, not make it one way, but a two-way relationship.
Right. And I think that's one of the great things with TikTok, is it's so transparent that you can't fake it anymore. You can certainly produce in a certain way that you still show what you want to show. That's always the case. But you have to create content at such a skill that, first of all, it becomes very difficult to, very time consuming. Second of all, if someone leaves a comment, you can just reply with a video. And what that does is makes people reply and engage in such a different way of like, hey, this person, this creator on the internet made a video to my question. It's not just, hey, let me write a comment.
I had that a couple of days ago. And then it was also seeing who was liking the video that they did a video to my comment on. And I'm like, whoa, they saw that video in which was my comment. So it can even expand beyond that as well. And it feels much more like there is a stronger bond there, even though it is in a way superficial because it's online and there are barriers to it. It's much more than the alternative of just sitting down watching news. And he's back.
That's the beauty of TikTok, being able to, you see a creator and you you see what they're doing. For example, Tim Hayden, that's how we met.
Do you want to tell the story?
Sure thing. So Tim Hayden, he's a content creator. TikTok, he owns a watch brand. So what he does is these Find Tim challenges across Europe, where he goes out to a city or a country, and then he hides somewhere in the city, and then you have to go and find him. So I saw that he was in Amsterdam, and me living an hour away, I was like, okay, this is my chance to go. Took a train there, waited for him to go live to present his location, took a bike, cycled there as fast as I could, and I happened to win. And then Parker, you were there 15 seconds later.
Which
at random.
Would have been mental if I got there first and you'd spent all this effort. I'm like, hey Tim, what's happening? He's like, you won. I'm like, what? Because I saw a TikTok earlier this morning and it had a link to something he was doing on Sunday. So I thought, I'm not going to be in Amsterdam by Sunday. And then we're just walking down the street casually. I completely missed him. And then I stopped. I'm like, this is a cool view. I want to get a photo here. And then I do a bit more of a 360 and I'm like,
hey, this is Tim.
It doesn't fit right because there's like two people kind of like live streaming like, that's Tim? What? And then that's what just as you arrive and I'm like, oh shit. Go up, meet him. And then, we have a sit-down conversation for an hour, which was awesome.
So what he did was he posted on Instagram, said, okay, hey, I'm in Amsterdam. I'm going to do this challenge. People mobilize for it. People start walking to. I did. I mobilized for it. So it's so transparent that you can share your location and people go and find you because the connection that they have to you and your brand. And that's something that I want to do too. So a key part of my business, my tea brand, is going to be a book club. I want to serve book lovers. I want to serve people who just love to read and want a high quality tea with it to enjoy and feel comfy. So what I'm going to do is, my business partner, she's an English lit graduate, and she just loves reading books. So she's going to do the community building. We're going to start a book club with it, and we're going to bring together people in that way. And then at the side, we're going to sell that tea. So it's the community serving first. It's the purpose first, the community building, the network, the making people enjoy. And then secondly, we're like, okay, if you like this, then you'll probably also like our tea.
So it's not about selling products as per se, integrating your products into organic content.
Absolutely.
Oh, and it's back. How many times does he have to do it?
I think it's going all around. I think to tie it all back together to where we started with talking about TV ads. I think where this is new is that it's no longer just a TV ad. You can create a community of like-minded people. You can bring them together. You've put the value first, right? That's why I'm doing the book club. That's why content creation is such a big thing. You put the value first. People have to enjoy what you're doing. And then secondly, you can say, okay, this is all for you. Now here's this little bit for me.
Because there's a really good example on YouTube. There's an add-on that you can get called vidIQ. And it effectively gives you a couple extra metrics on the side of YouTube. But they have a YouTube channel with over 1 million subscribers, and they rarely ever talk about their products. They just talk about, tips for growing on YouTube and strategies and how you go about doing that. And their brand is just a side part of that. They build a community about people wanting to grow on YouTube, which is a fundamental demographic of their product. And then occasionally they'll mention, hey, you can get some extra metrics with what we do. So you're not building a community out of, hey, look, we've got this cool thing. You're building a community out of a genuine value that you bring. And then once they're dedicated, once they're committed, and then they see the value that you can add with your bonus products, a lot of them will hop over to that.
And they're going to be such more loyal customers.
Yeah, they're not being sold to. It's not like you're shoving it in their face being like, buy.
It's the value first. It's the community first. It's what you give them. And only then you ask, hey, I also have this thing.
Jab, 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 right hook. It's the book by Gary Vee in terms of, give, and then ask.
Right.
And even then when you ask, it's not selfishly, it's here's how you can get extra value. I just happen to monetize from it, but you're getting extra value.
Right. And there's so many different options. Some own a business. Some do a lot of Bookstagram accounts, book talk accounts. That they have their Amazon wish list, and they get a percentage of that. Right. So there's so many different ways of monetizing from that audience. But first of all, you have to build it. You have to invest. You have to give them value and give them what they would like to see. And I think that's such a shift from how advertisement was done in the past and how it's done now.
And you see that doing it in uni, the contrast between what I know from my personal work and career versus what they teach there and how different it is. Like I was going through one of the lectures today, and at the bottom of the slide they had a Rhett and Link reference. I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's good. They actually are kind of putting it contextually, but it was kind of funny to see the contrasts between the two. The fact that in one of my first classes, the tutor was referencing the Kardashians. He knew more about the Kardashians than I did, and he was like 60. I'm like, what? But it's good, because obviously the unis are horrible at doing it because they're behind. It takes them years to implement new courses.
I remember you saying that they talked about Google Plus, even that was shut down.
One of our pre-recorded lectures, it was shut down 2019, Google Plus, and yet they were referencing articles that talked about Google Plus as a social media strategy, and that article was published in 2014. That's why universities are slow when you purely rely on contemporary young tutors to actually engage the new and relevant topics. So it's not irrelevant. Uni still has its place in helping you understand the traditional side of media, of organizations, so you can operate within them and with them. But on the side of that, you also, especially if you're wanting to engage in the new media world, to be working in the space. See if there is a content creator that you can help out with. Film, maybe write some stuff for them, whatever that may be. Just to be involved and learn and understand this new space. And he's back again.
He's making smaller circles now.
Yep, so be around quicker, but gone quicker.
That's where the shift comes in, because university is still very relevant. It's still very important to have.
Assuming it's reasonably priced. Because that changes per country. Netherlands, $6,000, big deal, we lost $6,000, that's nothing.
Right.
But if you're losing I don't know, one of my friends, if she didn't get full ride scholarship in Chicago, she'd be paying 120 grand Australian a year, which means
That
over a
is-
4-year degree is 460 grand, or 80 grand, sorry.
How are you ever going to make that back?
Well, in that case, I would not go to college. If that is your option, do not go to college for 480 grand. Like, it's just not worth it.
And then to add to that point, is in that case, it might be way more valuable to put yourself out there, start a TikTok channel, start a YouTube account, learn that way, but do hard work, right? Work every single day on it.
Now imagine spending, instead of 4 years at university, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. What if you spent those 4 years in a startup, in a business, getting work experience? If I had to employ someone and I'm like, this person did 3 years at a university getting a marketing degree, but this person has spent 3 years working for content creators doing all this really cool portfolio stuff, I'm hiring this person every single time.
Every single time.
Because this person doesn't have anything to show for it. Sure, they have a degree, but that means nothing. I know people who are really smart and really not into it that can get a degree. But this actually, you can see what they can do. And that is so much more valuable. A combination is also great.
Absolutely.
But this is proof. This is theoretically you might be able to do it.
And that was the problem I found myself in a year ago, where I finished my degree, I found out that actually it wasn't useful at all.
The psychology, wasn't it?
This was international studies. It was incredible. I loved the course because it gave me econ, it gave me politics, culture, sociology, linguistics, the entire spectrum. But it did not give me a skill that I could monetize with. So I spent the last year building that skill, building myself, investing in myself, so that now I'm at a point where I can say, hey, this mattered, this was so much fun, and now I'm ready for the job market in the way that I want to be.
And the thing is, it's not pointless. Like getting these skills, even if they're not purely monetizable, like I do philosophy as a minor, it's a good side degree to have because it can facilitate you doing better at whatever that main thing you're doing. So if I create content, and we talked before about building communities and understanding and bridging cultural barriers, philosophy is very good at that. It's very good at forcing you to truly think about something. Well, I can't monetize philosophy directly. You still apply it to everything else. Like my dad's got a philosophy degree. People we're staying with in Amsterdam, she's got a philosophy degree. You're not paid to be a philosopher, but you apply it to the other thing that you also did, business management, biomedical research. It's applicable. So
And
that's
that's
also understanding the context.
Right, and that's so important because once you understand, let's say you start a business, right? Once you understand the ethics of it, once you understand, okay, this is how I want to serve my community, you can do everything with that in philosophy as well, the way you work, the way you find a job. I was reading, and this would be my book recommendation if I gave one, How Will You Measure Your Life? What it's talking about is basically philosophy from a practical standpoint. How will you measure your life when you look back on it? How will you measure your career? How will you find the best career that's more fulfilling to you? Those are philosophy questions, right? And then you find philosophy, use that to get further. So you use that, you apply that, and then you take the steps to get to that person that you've decided you want to be. I've decided I want to be a business owner in this sense, helping people.
So what were the main things you checked off that made you decide, okay, I don't want the typical 9 to 5? What were my do's, like wants and not wants in life?
One is my health.
Yep. In what way? How does that apply to you?
It's not medically diagnosed, but I'm very tired all the time. So my energy, I can work for maybe 5 hours a day, and then I'm done. Now in a normal job in an office, that's just not going to cut it. It's not going to be enough.
Yeah.
Secondly, once I freshly graduated, I spent 2 months in an office working full time. And I just decided I really did not enjoy that. That didn't spark happiness to me. I want to sit outside, build a podcast, build a community, and that made me so much happier, even though I did not get the financial return for it yet. I think it's a question of fulfillment.
I definitely agree with that. Because a lot of people, they choose something based on monetary. Like, I'll talk to friends and I'm like, what are you thinking? And they say something, and I'm like, why? That sounds really boring. They're like, yeah, but it pays well. Like, well, why would you do that? Paying well isn't enough of a reason to do something. Like, obviously, some people, there are situations where you need money, whatever, but assuming that isn't the case, assuming you do have choice, why not choose something that you actually genuinely enjoy? Rather than work to get money to then do something you enjoy, why can't the thing that you work be the thing you enjoy in the first place? So even if you get less money, it doesn't matter because you're not using the money to spend on something you enjoy because you're already doing the thing you enjoy. And that's the same with this, right? For me, it was, I didn't want a 9 to 5. I didn't want to be told when or where to work. Like now I can be here and this is working. I don't have to be based out of Sydney per se. I don't have specific hours. If this morning there's a friend over, I can hang with them and just work later tonight. I'm not dictated by this 9 to 5 of applying for holidays or whatever. Also, you can focus on what you want to focus on. You're not stuck to doing someone else's vision. If you're working in the mainstream film industry, you're forced to fulfill what the director wants. Hello, buddy.
Hey, come.
Doesn't care.
You, come here.
Yeah, you're forced to fulfill the director's vision, but what about my vision? What about my creative intent? I want to have control in what I do. Oh, no. No. Don't take a dump next
I
to
wish
stuff.
we had a camera this way, but maybe not.
The amount of times I hear people in traditional jobs just absolutely complain about what they're doing. Like, the illegal stuff. It was just there, I think. Like, somewhere there. Oh, good. Why I don't want a dog, I prefer cats. Yeah, like literally this morning I was hearing someone just absolutely rant about the illegal stuff their traditional job was doing to them and their colleagues. And this is like one of the biggest businesses in Australia, one of the most highly prized and best reputation. And these petty illegal things that just screw them over go on. I don't want to be a part of that. If you're working on your thing, you can avoid a lot of that. You have more control over what happens. You're not the bottom of the rung where you just get dished around and you hope for the best. There is no security in traditional jobs. People think that's more secure than freelancing in this industry. But if anything, it's less secure because you don't have the ability to pivot. If you're a photographer and weddings die off, great, you move to another event. Maybe you have to warm up a bit, build some new clientele, but you have much more translatable skills. You're not hoping, like if there's a GFC and you're working in the banking industry, you're not being hired again. What was it, 50% of the people over the age of 40 never worked again in the 91 recession? Like, there's no more security in that than this so-called unsecure arts industry. So even then, there seems to be so many more advantages to going it on your own. Some people prefer being part of a team, great. But if that's not for you, if you feel like you want to be doing your own thing, there are so many advantages to it. Just, you have to give it a go.
I think there's an addition I'd like to make, because a lot of freelancers, a lot of new businesses that are starting up on social media or online, they need people too.
Yep.
If you don't want the traditional 9 to 5, you don't want to work in an office, if you have the negative experience like you just described about this person in that major corporation, you don't have to start just throwing everything away and being on your own. You can start by getting a position in one of these smaller companies, see how they do it, learn from them. And then once the time is right, if this is even your dream, decide, okay, now I want to go on my own.
Because that's the best way to test things out without committing. And then you can
Absolutely.
build networks, you can build knowledge. Well, I didn't join a typical startup. I have done lots of freelancing work with lots of different people, so I've effectively had that experience in a way. Even to the extent where there'll be like some entrepreneur or leadership thing at uni, and I'm like, I've done this 7 times in high school. Or one of my uni classes, the whole term was just practicing a startup, the prototype and design processes. And I was so bored because I had already replicated this so many times, whether it be through robotics or basketball or whatever it was. But the point being, you need to get to that stage where you've had that experience working in teams, building something, so that when you do finally commit, you've done it a million times and it's easy. You know exactly what to do.
Absolutely. And as a final point, I'll add to that. I think what defines us as people and what defines us in our careers, in our relationships, and what will measure our lives is the way that we evolve, the person that we become. And I think that by joining that startup, by starting that TikTok account, by going on your own and trying and then trusting yourself, okay, I'll make it. Then failing and see, oh, I didn't make it this time, but I now know a lot more to get further ahead next time. It grows you so much as a person, and it helps you develop yourself into the person that you want to be without society's direction of, no, you have to be this way as a lawyer. You have to protect and pretend to be this way in order to be successful. Because this is a quote that reminds me of Gary Vee, that 7 billion people need to change the conversation of what success looks like.
7 billion people need to change the conversation of what success looks like. It is not to make $1 billion. It is to actually wake up in the morning and be in a good mood.
It's to wake up in the morning and to feel fulfilled, to play with your dog and cats, to enjoy your time with your wife. That's what success means to me, and that's what I want to build, and what I want to envelop in my tea brand.
So I was talking to a guy about a week ago, and completely on that note, where he doesn't earn a lot of money doing what he does, but he has created a lifestyle where what he does, he can do that forever. He can do that till the day he dies, because all it involves is doing the occasional bit of work, traveling around the world for his communities, doing it's effectively, his job has become a lifestyle where his work is the traveling, it is hanging out with his students, with his community, and he's able to do that forever. He doesn't have to earn enough so that he can retire. He doesn't need to retire because you enjoy what you do, your lifestyle is what you enjoy, but that's also what brings in some revenue to help pay your rent, and that's all you need. And you can just relax, you can enjoy your surroundings, enjoy the places that you are, the people that you're with, and you don't need any more than that. Sure, money is a bit of security, so if something bad happens, but if you're living in Europe, medical issues aren't going to be a problem because that's all paid for by the government. If you're, for whatever reason, something really bad happens, you lose your money, last case resort, there's still welfare, not ideal, but it's there. You can really create your life around what you enjoy, once again, not just because people have told you the only thing that matters is becoming a lawyer, doctor, something mainstream, perceived successful. Even though the people I know that have gone down those routes sometimes have actually left because they're so stressful, because they're so miserable, they've actually gone to something else. This seems like a much more logical pursuit, a much more logical way to define success and happiness and the way you should pursue your life. Not, have you got the best marks, but are you actually enjoying what you do?
And what's more is you can bring so much value to the people around you. Ultimately, one of the biggest sources of our happiness, whether you like it or not, is going to be your family, your wife, your kids if you want them. Why not try to build your life in a way in your 20s to ensure that you have enough money / that you can build your career in a way that you can spend the most time with them. That when your child calls you to come and play with him or her, that you can do that.
Well, that's why I didn't want to go into the traditional film industry, because I have so many friends whose parents are in it, and the parents are just gone for like 5 months of the year. On just a 5-month stint, you just don't see them, because they're off in Ecuador filming something for Fast and Furious, or they're up north filming something for the new Hollywood film. And
that can be really fun when you're in your 20s to 30s, when you don't have the responsibilities yet.
And I even knew someone who she decided not to do it. She just decided to stay home in Sydney. Yes, all of her friends are now getting Oscars and the Academy Awards, but she decided that family was more important to her, and she would just maybe not have the same career success, but have the personal success because that was more valuable to her.
And it starts with those core values, deciding what's success to you.
That's true, because a lot of people don't define that. When I talk to a lot of people towards the getting to the end of high school, a lot of them didn't know what to do, but that's because they hadn't defined what mattered to them most. They hadn't tried things. Well, I had tried maybe 5 or 6 different careers really intensely to the point where I networked with the top people in the country. It became very clear, okay, maybe I don't want to do that, or maybe I do want to do that, but maybe in a different way. And without that, without going out there and trying things, you don't have the ability to do that. And school really hinders on that because it prioritizes purely getting marks and assessments that just get thrown out after a year because they don't matter once you graduate that year group, rather than giving you the opportunity to try things, to experiment, which uni gives you more of an opportunity to do so, assuming you're in a media degree or commerce where it's really easy. Absolutely. You have more of an opportunity to be out here traveling, meeting people, doing cool things, as opposed to being locked in a room, getting an arbitrary grade. Interesting photo of you on the lacrosse website.
I used to be a goalie for the national lacrosse team.
Because it said goalie on LinkedIn, I'm like, is that soccer? And then later on it said lacrosse, I'm like, oh. Because obviously doing that creates you have to have a certain drive and passion to reach that stage. How do you apply that to what you do in content?
I think that's a beautiful question. What it really taught me is the grit. It's the consistency that I'm just trying to learn and develop myself in. But that's really what got it started, right? Because to be in the national team, you have to train every day, every other day. Take your rest, but you need to practice, you need to train. As a goalie, you're expected to face shots of over 150 kilometers an hour.
Ouch.
watch the ball, be there. You have a helmet on, you have protection, but still, that fear is going to kick in, and suddenly you have to decide, no, I want to move towards the ball, not away from it.
That's, I think, the pinnacle, the biggest life metaphor is if you can do that where you're jumping towards the danger and able to apply that to everything else.
So the first thing, the consistency, the workout. Secondly, that jumping towards the fear. Because
so counterintuitive.
the most beautiful things in life are going to be what's beyond fear. So when I saved a shot, there was this one time that I remember. We were in a game, just a friendly game, and what you do if you're tied and if you're just with friends, you do what's called a brave heart. All the players leave the field except a goalie on either side and a player. But because lacrosse is so fast, if you shoot and you miss, the other team gets it.
Yeah.
Gets the ball. You're done. Right? At that moment, I saved a shot. It came into my goal and I saved it in my net. And the team was so much behind it. And that's an incredible feeling. Because when you step into that fear, which not a lot of people do, what it really taught me is that every time you step towards that ball and when you save it, so when you face danger and you overcome it, you're one step further and closer to becoming the person that you want to be.
So I remember there was a TikTok that I saw at one point and someone was ranting about how there's always things about telling introverts how to be extroverts but not the other way around. But the way I interpret in a lot of the cases, it's not that. It's that someone wants to, as you're saying, be more of themselves, who they feel like they truly are. So you're trying to help people achieve that, whether it's be more confident and be able to speak with lots of people, whether that's try and reach out for the career that they want, that they desire. That's not so much about being an extrovert, more they have someone who they want to be and you're trying to help them get to that stage. And seeing myself and a lot of the friends around me, all of us improve to get to more of that point is incredible, because someone who you saw was really introverted and to themselves and didn't have much confidence a couple of years ago is now the one person who's loved by everyone and goes out and makes tons of really good friends. And especially towards this, like these years of our life, that's where a lot of that happens. Something that you mentioned on your LinkedIn, which I think is very powerful in what I'm kind of doing now and what one of my friends that I was just on a phone call this morning is doing, is traveling without a plan. And I feel that plays a lot onto what you were saying with the professional sports. But what do you see as the value of just throwing your backpack over the fence, as Amar Kandil puts it, and then just having to figure out what happens next?
For me, that's the most fun way to travel. I went to Portugal recently. I had no idea where I was going to go, where I was going to sleep. But I decided we'll figure it out along the way. And that was so much fun because of the people you meet, and then suddenly the plan changes and you go to city B instead of city A. And you're like, okay, sounds good. To make it more philosophical, you're basically asking between the balance between an emergent strategy and a deliberate strategy. I think in a way you should always have a goal. You always have that deliberate strategy that you're going for. In terms of holiday, that's okay. I want to see this place and I want to have so much fun, and I want to go drinking one day, right? But in your career, that might be, okay, I want to become a really valuable marketer. I want to become a podcaster. I want to build my brand through TikTok. That's the deliberate strategy. And the emergent strategy forms as you've defined your deliberate strategy. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then challenges come up. Other things come up. And you kind of shift as you go along, but you still have that goal over the horizon. Okay, this is where I'm heading.
North Star.
But you still decide, okay, this challenge, this opportunity right now, I'm going to take that. This client right now, I'm really looking forward to working with them. Or there might be a client that might be really prestigious, like you're like, okay, this will be awesome to work with, but actually, it doesn't spark me joy. And that's the emergent strategy.
Because funny enough, that's exactly how I have had to think about my stuff is, and something that I always mention to others when they don't know what direction they have is, what I thought I wanted 6 months ago is very different to what I think I want now, which will be very different to what direction I'm going in 6 months' time. Where you have a rough direction of creator economy space. And maybe you just have a pinpoint of, oh, it'd be cool to do this. But allow that to move, because you don't know the people who you'll meet, the things that you will do, the opportunities that will arise. So allow for that variation and don't expect to have a complete plan, because the best things that will come up is when I wasn't even meant to come to Europe, but my parents were going to visit the family. I'm like, why can't I visit the family as well? So then I came, then we meet Tim, and then now we're doing this and whatever's happening, capitalizing on.
That's the perfect example of an emergent strategy, right? You have a North Star, okay, I want to do this in the creator economy. And then you also take the time to say, hey, I want to do this right now. I think this will be the best option. Then we suddenly met him. We meet Dan. We met each other, and that's the part of the emergent strategy that's so exciting. You don't know what you're gonna do tomorrow, but you know where you're headed.
And the metaphor that I always use for that is everyone's traveling down this dark tunnel. You're just going through everything that you do in your career and your personal life is down this tunnel. At some point there will be a right turn, that right turn being some opportunity, something that arises. But until you get to that right turn, you don't know that it's there. You don't know how long it will be till you get there. So sometimes it can be really demotivating when you're just going down this tunnel and you're like, why isn't something happening? But you just have to keep in mind that there will be a right turn, that something will arise. The faster you work, the harder you work, the sooner that will come. And the more you're laid back, the more that you just complain and be like, nothing's occurring, the slower it'll be for that opportunity to arise. And that whole quote being, luck is the combination of opportunity meets preparation meets opportunity. And that's completely true. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet Tim if I didn't take advantage of the opportunity of coming to Europe and doing this. So you have to be there ready and waiting and mentally prepared that when something does arise, when circumstances do happen, you know exactly the game plan and how to take advantage of it. When I see Tim, I don't run away scared because I'm like, oh my God, it's Tim. I go up and say, hey, how you going? And we have a conversation. So it's really being knowing and prepared, and if something were to arise, how do you react? And also knowing when not to react. Because just before I came here, I saw a Penn and Teller performance at the Opera House. And after the performance ended, we left. We went to see if we could watch the State of Origin, which is a big rugby tournament. Never watch it, but if my friends are, sure. And as we were looping around trying to find a good pub, we saw Penn Jillette just walking down the street with someone. And I know in these circumstances, it's a weird concept to go up and then say, hey, can I have a photo? Because that's it's treating them like a zoo animal. So I don't want to be a part of that sort of culture that you have in LA where it's lots of that. You're spotting a celebrity. Like, no, I just walked past him and said, hey, Penn, thanks for tonight, and kept going. He barely notices that, hold on, someone's speaking to me. But it's about being prepared for those situations. The opportunity was just thanking him for having a good show, and it's cool to meet him, but I don't need to pester them because I was already mentally prepared I know what my ethics and morals are, I don't want to be part of that. But meeting Tim, that's fine to go up to him because it's in the context where he wants people to come up to him. So it's understanding that as well, and understanding what opportunities are what and what do they give rise to. That wasn't a situation where I could go and speak with Penn, ask for me to interview him. It wasn't that situation. But maybe down the line it can be.
And it's again, you have the deliberate strategy of this is where you want to go, but in the situation and in the moment, you decide, okay, this is right now the best way to go. Right now, this might be a better option. Situation A, situation B, option A, option B, and you just make that decision in the moment as part of the strategy that will eventually, as you trust the process, will get you there. And to add to that, one thing that really surprised me, what Tim said, is and I'm butchering his words, the fastest way to get somewhere is to go slow. So that as you have that deliberate strategy, as that goal on the horizon, you go slow to make sure that you're taking every step deliberately. You're making every decision the best you can to make sure that you do get there. Because oftentimes if we rush things, we might take a left before we need to, before we're meant to.
Or trying to do too much at once. That's the problem I have, is I have all these ambitions of like, I want to start this product, I want to grow on here and do this and do that. And I realize because I'm doing so much, I'm not doing anything well. So it's now about creating a plan while I'm away before I get back of, okay, for 3 months, I'm really going to focus on this one thing. And then I can start to branch out. But making sure they really hone in on something before I start trying to do too much before I'm ready.
Right.
And it may be a bit disappointing because I want to do all these cool things, but I know that my ambitions outweigh my funds and my current capabilities.
Right. And it's that balance between this is what I want and this is the sacrifice I have to make for it. So that one goal that you have versus all the other things that might still get you there, but it might not be the right decision to take at that moment. Thank you so much for having me on, mate.
Justin's socials?
They'll be down below.
Sign out.